I found out why the Mormons stopped coming to my house. I live in a multifamily apartment complex with my lover, who stays at home most of the day when I'm at work. At one point, our door was getting knocked on twice, sometimes 3 times a day, multiple times a week. I hold no hostility towards Mormons, but it is kind of annoying being interrupted while cooking or working at 8 p.m. It was often enough that I noticed when it no longer happened. We are very obviously a gay couple, so I figured at some point or another they put that together and stopped coming. I was wrong. Turns out my lover, who is, lovingly and in their own words, built like a brick shithouse, answered the door fresh out the shower, wet and in one of my silk robes at some point in the middle of the day, and they have avoided the building since. I still see them in the neighborhood but never on our floor. They just confessed this during couples game night and I just started crying laughing. It's been months. They never told me, because they were sure they had stretched my robe out in the shoulders and didn't want to upset me. I personally think they look great in tight clothes, but I can understand why seeing a big, burly ginger man in a barely closed, ill-fitting silk robe could get us put on a religious shit list. Maybe it's just a coincidence. And what lucky guys, either way, when I'm home. But regardless, it's so silly. Update. My GF beat the shit out of someone who broke into her house. I don't know if anyone remembers me, but a while ago my girlfriend and I had a home invasion incident that culminated in her beating the shit out of the intruder. I'm tired of saying my GF, so I'm gonna call her Diana. Turns out the guy was a drug addict from the next town over. He was in his 60s. And he had an extensive history in jail and mental hospitals. Unfortunately, about 2 months after my post, he passed away. We didn't know anything about why until we got a chance to talk to his sister, who insisted she didn't blame Diana, and that the doctors even said that he probably didn't have much longer anyway. Diana was visibly distressed during this conversation, so I'm not sure whether or not the sister just said that to comfort her. After that, Diana went on a trip to a national park during a week she knew I couldn't take off and forgot her meds. She has seizures that look like mild psychosis/magical thinking, and ended up refusing to come home at the end of the trip. She kept saying that she felt like she couldn't leave the woods because she was certain there was something she needed to learn there that she hadn't yet, and when I asked her how long that might take, she said, "Some people take a lifetime." Too attached to me, her house, her pets, etc., and that she needed to meditate on that for a while. I ended up going to her temple to see if anyone was willing to give me some perspective on the situation, since she was seeing things through a Buddhist lens. It was the right choice. A monk actually drove the 6 hours out to her with me to talk to her in person, since she wasn't picking up calls. I am so unbelievably grateful for that monk, because Diana started taking her meds again and came home soon after. I've never been religious, but I started to read the Pali Canon afterwards, and that shit slaps. Diana was already volunteering her time at the temple, so now we both go together when we can. All things considered, since then, things are back to normal and going well. We're both children of divorce, so even before all this we were doing prophylactic couples counseling every few months, and for a while, after, we were going once a week. Diana has started seeing a therapist on her own as well, which I am so proud of her for, since she's always hated the idea of individual therapy. We also stepped up our home security game. Diana already had plenty of cameras, but now we have door/window alarms and motion sensors. We're rooting for us to get married. But that's not going to happen. Legal marriage isn't something that interests us, and it never has. But we did buy each other rings, and it's been a great comfort to have something physical to remind me of her on my person all the time. We're also considering having a small commitment ceremony next fall, less than 3. Thanks again for all the feedback on my previous post. I got a lot of great advice and some good criticism. I showed it to Diana and she got a kick out of the comments, and we had a little mutual cry over how kind a lot of you guys were. I asked her if she was okay with me posting this update, and she clucked at me and told me to do whatever I want online as long as I'm being nice and anonymous. LOL. I just broke up with my partner because they didn't even realize they'd cheated on me. Life is feeling real batshit today. Came across my partner's alt account on social media, open to public viewing. They described it as an orgasm journal, where they seem to be exploring self-pleasure. Cool, love that. Very data-driven. Cut to a post about collective episode with another online user. They had been exploring what sounds to be a lot like mutual masturbation, where you're turned on by the idea of someone watching, viewing things through a data-driven lens in the name of research. Naturally, I lost my shit and messaged them. We called, and I told them all of the assumptions I'd made. They didn't say I was wrong, just said, "It's research." I feel like I'm getting pulled into insanity and delusion here. It feels like kink gone wrong. What do you mean it's research? Research is ethical? Having sexual conversations around topics that arouse you with another person for the purpose of sexual pleasure? Sounds like infidelity to me. I can't believe I had to tell this person, who most of the time has their head on square and thinks intelligently and rationally, that this constitutes as cheating. It's not research or data. What are you talking about? They've just posted after our breakup. Yes, I'm gonna stop looking, but it's been 12 hours. Please let me wallow. That they're open, not poly. Fast fucking turnaround. When we were in a monogamous relationship, literally 8 hours ago. I cannot for the life of me process that this is the way it ends. My husband had a thing for a dog, and now I'm rethinking him as a person. 3 weeks ago, me, 28F, and my husband, 29 meters, went out to a bar. When we got there, we happened to run into a middle school friend of his. We got to talking, and his friend was sharing stories about when they were in middle school together, like the time his friend walked into the wrong restroom by mistake and was made fun, or for a year. And when my husband got hard asking out a girl, after a few more embarrassing and funny stories, his friend, who we'll call Jeff, says, "Hey, remember that dog? I think you can see where this is going." My husband started breaking down laughing, and I was totally confused. So I asked, "What dog?" Jeff explained in 6th grade was /is, whatever the terminology is, a zoophilia. He was sexually interested in a dog named Champion. He didn't do anything but got a boner after he was playing with this dog. He and his friend shocked about it for a while, but he kept taking pictures of this dog. It started to move from joking territory to creepy. 3 months later, he attempted to kidnap the dog. Thankfully, Jeff's father, the owner of the dog, caught him. Is it weird that I'm reconsidering my marriage, even though this hasn't been a problem in decades? I gave the nice guy a chance, and it failed miserably. People convinced me to give this guy a chance even though he wasn't my type. 39M at the time, 40M now. No ambition, emotionally unavailable, heavily overweight, stomach hanging down over his belt. After a drunken night, he came inside me without my knowledge and later joked about it, so I thought he was lying. I found out I was pregnant, and when I told him, he ghosted me. He has no children at all, and told me at this moment that he didn't want any, but in a previous talk about why he didn't have any, he never mentioned he didn't want any. He eventually came back but was cold and unsupportive. When I had a miscarriage, he literally texted "party." In the process of waiting for the miscarriage to completely process, I was crying from emotions, and he initiated physical intimacy, causing me to have contractions and end up in the ER. He then made a comment that I should probably have menopause, because that would be ideal. Meanwhile, I am not even old enough to have menopause. That was the breaking point. But I was alone and emotionally vulnerable, so I stayed a bit longer than I should have. The last straw was when he knowingly came to my house sick, and got me sick, knowing I was going to spend the weekend with my grandma for her 96th birthday, and I would never risk getting her sick on me when I was bedridden, or even bring me soup after I gave him the full nurse treatment and took proper care of him. Eventually, I realized he was a manipulative man-child who had no future for himself, so I broke up and instantly felt relief. Now, I have some of his clothes at my place, but don't want to contact him because I fear it'll give him false hope. Someone keeps rearranging the letters in the craft store I work at. It's starting to get creepy. Who? I stared at the aisle end cap display of glittery disco ball letters. Someone had lovingly rearranged the letters to spell out boobs, dick, fuck. One word per shelf. In that order. Like they purposely made them go from less obscene to more obscene. The only shelf they didn't touch was the one that was half covered by the advertisement that read, asterisk, 50% off disco letters. It wasn't worth the effort, I guess, if no one was going to see it. Teenagers, asterisk, I growled under my breath. I didn't want to sound curmudgeon-y, but damn asterisk. It was 15 minutes till closing, and I had a family to get home to. A little girl who stayed up past her bedtime just to hug me goodnight. When you're young, everything's so fucking funny. They never think of the consequences. I rearranged the letters, grumbling all the while. Then I walked away, muttering curses to myself, pushing the dust mop over the aisle floor. I was the only one in the store, and this had to get done before I closed up, or I'd be yelled at. We had a militaristic boss who checked the security camera tapes like a psycho. When I went into aisle 32, however, there was another one. FLACID. Okay. I had to give them points for creativity on this one. We'd mostly sold out of these oversized gold party letters. There were only 10 left. It took a lot of creativity to form an obscene word out of 10 letters. Kudos, honestly. I re-scrambled the letters and continued through the store. When I got to aisle 44, however, where we keep the wooden paintables, like birdhouses and the like, someone had rearranged the wooden letters into words. Just one word, not obscene. HELP. I froze, staring at the letters. Well, that was disconcerting. That had to be another joke, right? Trying to give someone a scare. Well, they succeeded. I glanced around the store, and even crouched to check the space under the aisle shelves. No one was there, of course. I stood back up and continued pushing the dust mop. 9:03. Fuck. I had to hurry it up and close up. I went on mopping through the aisles as quickly as I could. When I got to the baking aisle, and my eyes fell on the cookie cutter letters, I knew times there was going to be another word or message waiting. And there was. The cookie cutters had been balanced upright, reading, "Watching you, all the blood drained out of my face." Shut up, asterisk, I told myself, pushing the mop faster. It's just a bunch of teenagers trying to scare people. Obscenities and creepy messages. This screams of 14-year-old boys who watched a horror movie once. Except, what if it was two different people? The thought lingered in my brain. It was a Friday, one of our busiest days. Close to 100 people had probably been in the store over the whole day since yesterday's cleaning. What if these messages are real? What if someone is watching you? I thought of one of our regulars. A guy in his 60s, white hair, roving eyes, thin frame. I always thought it was a little weird that he came in so often. I mean, I think it's amazing when guys craft. But he just stuck out like a sore thumb among the older ladies and the families, especially because he seemed to buy such varied stuff. Clay one day and paint by numbers the next, rather than sticking with one niche hobby. What if he'd been coming here so often because of me? He was always overly friendly, his gaze lingering sometimes glancing down. I ran to the storage closet and threw the dust mop in. Got my keys and purse, headed towards the front door to lock up. But as I hurried down the aisle, something caught my eye. I turned. The disco ball letters. They'd been rearranged. Instead of obscenities or random gibberish, they now read, "Better run time seemed to stop." My heart dropped to the ground. Someone else is in the store. I glanced around, just in time to see a shape dart behind the aisle, wide. Too quick to see anything. Apparent gender, race, age, but enough to see that someone was there. Just a flicker of movement. I sprinted towards the door. I didn't even bother locking up as I ran out to my car. Me from the side. I fell to the ground, hard. The asphalt scraped against my cheek. I scrambled up to see a figure standing over me, silhouetted by the red glow of the C rafts 4 all L sign. It was a man, but younger than the guy the first was thinking of, someone I vaguely recognized, who'd been in the store at some point, but I couldn't quite place. "Gotcha," he growled, his throat gravelly. I scrambled up, stood there, frozen, staring at him, locked in a stalemate. Then I dashed around the other side of the car, dove in, and hit the locks. His palms hit the glass the instant the locks clicked. He tried the handle, over and over again. "Hey!" He shouted. I climbed over the center console, got in the driver's seat, and reversed out as fast as I could. Not bothering to look if I ran any part of him over. I drove. And drove, not even glancing in the rearview mirror until I got home. My husband called the police as I hugged my little girl, who was still waiting up for me, imagining how long she would have waited if I never came home. He cut me off. I've been fucking with his car for months. I live in a major U.S. city. Last September or so I was heading to work, driving down a quiet neighborhood street when some dude pulled off the curb and would have plowed right into me had I not swerved left. I engaged in a, "Hey dude, can I get an apology for almost hitting me?" He replied with 2 middle fingers and a, "I'm sorry you're such a pussy." So I made note of his license plate and make and model. For months now, not daily or even weekly, but every so often I'll mess with his car, sometimes innocent, like hanging a balloon or writing asshole in the windshield frost. But sometimes I'll empty my dog's poop bag on the ground outside the driver's side door or scatter food on the windshield so birds poop on it. For what it's worth, I operate at night or early morning and wear a mask in case he's got a dash cam. It may be petty, but this guy had such an awful response to what was 100% his fault. I don't feel at all bad for messing with his ride. However, I also know it's just a matter of time before he does more to find out who I am. but I'm absolutely compelled to continue being a dick to this guy who had no decency whatsoever. I blew up my wife's family yesterday. I have a trans son. They came out sometime back in 2014-2015. My wife's family has never been too keen on the idea, but we managed a lukewarm truce until they graduated high school. That ended last night. People started dogpiling my wife on a social media post, and once the attacks got personal, my name got drug in, because I have had my angry eyes in over social media for a few months, and I snapped. They were abusing my wife for some dumb shit I posted to deal with my anger. So I told them all the truth about how bullshit it was that we were constantly being gaslit into thinking they accept my son for who they are. But even after 7 years, they still can't use their preferred name. Of course, that self-righteous anger rarely feels good the next day. Sure, I felt vindicated. But my wife is devastated. Her family has abused her her entire life. But to her, they are still family. I can't stand them, because they are those reformed drug addicts that now think they are better than everyone else. But she loves them, and she is devastated. As much as I can't stand her family, I really regret telling them how I actually thought of them over this issue with my son. Because it won't fix anything. It's just gonna make shit worse, and the only person that is going to suffer is my wife. I went off my meds about 4 months ago, and I haven't told anyone. So I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was a freshman in high school. I took Adderall all throughout high school and into college with no real problems. In fact, I even had really good grades up until my second year of college. Slowly the medicine stopped working because my body built up a tolerance for Adderall, and they switched me to a different medication. They put me on Ritalin, which was disastrous, and gave me terrible insomnia, among other side effects. Long story short, my doctor, for some reason, came to the conclusion that I had bipolar, and that was the reason why the Ritalin wasn't working for me. He just stuck me on like 4 different medications and said that as someone with bipolar, I would never be able to get an Adderall prescription again. I tried the medicine for 6 months, and for 6 months, I didn't even have the energy to look for a job, and I didn't work a single shift for Amazon Flex or DoorDash. My medicine kept getting switched around to get rid of the medicines that were giving me side effects. I think I had to have been on like 20 different prescriptions over the course of that 6 months. I was miserable. So I quit taking the medicine even though my doctor had made me sign something saying that I would contact him if I made any changes to my medicine. Lined up 3 job interviews. I had already worked 2 shifts with Amazon Flex. I'm never going back on medicine again unless it's like an antibiotic or something. I overheard my boyfriend's brother talking to his mistress about leaving his pregnant wife in a bit of a rut. And when I finally decided to leave the damn house, I went to my boyfriend's little family gathering his mom was hosting. I'll skip to the damn point. I was having drinks with my boyfriend, and we both overheard a conversation between his brother and some woman on the phone. His brother was in the bathroom, and his wife was talking to other family. So being the nosy assholes we are, we listened. Turns out his brother has been having an affair on his pregnant wife. We heard the woman tell him that she wanted him to divorce his wife for her, but to wait until after his wife gives birth, which is in a few months. Apparently she doesn't want him to stress his wife out into a miscarriage, and that she still wants him to be in the child's life, and she's be an amazing stepmother. What's worse is he agreed, though I don't know if he'd actually go through with it or not. What the fuck is wrong with people? She said she had morals on the call. Bullshit. If she had any damn morals, she wouldn't be sleeping with a married man, especially with a pregnant wife. My boyfriend and I don't know whether to tell his wife or not. We don't really want to stress her out, but IDK. We are stumped. We never thought he'd be that kind of sick bastard. Feel sick just thinking about it.